Hello and welcome to another Sarnia Cinema podcast. We've got a pretty full half hour this week and we'll be looking at Filth, R.I.P.D., After Earth, No One Lives and Compliance. But first of all, the Mallard Cinema is showing a 18 rated film, which is definitely for the first time since I've been back on the island, which is over 2 years now.
Was Dread in 18?
Didn't show it.
Oh
Remember
god, they
the
didn't.
fuss?
They did not show
Oh god,
it.
I'm so
The
sorry.
controversy.
Sorry.
And the
I'll
film they
track
showed
that.
was Filth, which is an adaptation of Irvin Welsh's book of the same name, which is about a policeman called Bruce Robbo Robertson, who is just disgusting. He's played by James McAvoy. And so there's been a fuss about this film generally, and it's quite raucous and robust in its humour. Russ, do you want to just tell us what the film's actually about? What's the story?
Yeah, okay. Story-ish. I mean, I suppose Bruce, Dr. James McAvoy plays Bruce Robinson, who's a policeman, and I mean, he's an all-round messed up guy. I mean, I think it's very easy to call him, a bastard or that. But I mean, if you watch the film, you realise this man's got issues, yeah. And he kind of the way he kind of deals with those issues is by being a nasty bastard, unfortunately. And he's almost a bit Iago from Shakespeare. He's kind of plotting for this promotion in the police force. He wants to be detective superintendent or whatever it is, top detective, and there are 4 or 5 other people that he thinks he can scam over, and so kind of the film looks at him doing that and how he sets in force these kind of plans to undermine everyone around him. But then at the same time, you're witnessing his decline in many ways, and he's got problems with his wife who you actually don't know whether she's left him or whether she's with him or whether she's gone away, and you find out throughout the course of the film. And it's just a massive cocktail of sex, drugs, booze, crazy people with pig heads, and a bit of violence thrown in for good measure. But one of the best ways I thought to describe it is Irvin Welsh, and if you've seen Trainspotting, then you shouldn't be surprised with what kind of a film it is. It's very similar to that in terms of...
And it sounds like him, the speech. That's one thing that struck me, was the speech really sounds like...
Oh, for sure. But also, that was where a lot of the comedy for me came from. It's a very funny film. I was kind of laughing out loud at quite a few points, and a lot of it's just because of the language. There is a fair bit of talking to camera and nodding and winking, and it's just the prose is especially with that brilliantly rough Scottish accent. There are some great words in there. There's a few pufters and a few kind of other ones that they're just brilliant words, especially when you hear them said in that kind of way. So I kind of enjoyed it from that way. I mean, like you said, you don't see many true 18s these days, and I think this is one. Yeah. It's got language, it's got violence, which isn't that kind of, like I said, if you'd seen something like Dread, I would have thought the violence is probably worse in something like Dread than it was really in this. But like I say, there's more darker kind of themes at play in
it's
Filth.
It's a film for grown-ups.
It's definitely a film for grown-ups. I thought McAvoy was great. I mean, it's a very difficult character. And I think he was probably the right choice because he's done kind of everything in terms of Last King of Scotland, where he's totally the good guy, and and Atonement and things like that. When now he's kind of he does play on that a bit, and it's nice to see him doing something kind of this dark. Cause I think he's very good at it. He's got that kind of crazy face that he can pull out whenever he wants. Eddie Marsden's in it as well, who's never less than brilliant in anything he does. What I like the most about it is that these days, you can very often go into a film and you always have an idea of how it's going to end. You can kind of sit there and you can still enjoy a film, but there's not many things that are surprising these days, unless it's a big twist at the end, which is fine, but it's gimmicky and so on and so forth. But I went in and sat and watched this, and at no point was I even thinking, oh god, this is going to end like that, or this is going to do that. You were just enjoying kind of it as it went along, and it does have a very surprising end. Didn't expect it to go there at all. And it's quite an affecting end for what could have just been I don't give a shit about that person, who cares, So I did really enjoy it. I thought from a relatively inexperienced director, John S. Baird, I thought he did a very good job with it. And like I talked about next, so there are some times where Bruce hallucinates, and they're quite dark and quite Jacob's Laddery. Kind of moments, when you're flashing and people's faces are changing and they look. Jim Broadbent's brilliant in it as a crazy doctor with an Australian accent, I think, which is mad. But yeah, so I mean, it's like Trainspotting. It's fast, it's quite rambly, it's vulgar, it's violent, but it's all fun and games. It's all very good, and like I say, it's very surprising. You've got to go with it because it's balls to the wall craziness by the last kind of 20 minutes. You don't expect it to go there at all.
I mean, I've got to say, I quite enjoyed it. I'd have liked a bit more actual sort of procedural about it. Like, because it does take a turn
Yeah.
quite near the end, and I would have wanted to have seen maybe him chasing, trying not to spoil it, but maybe that bit of mystery being sort of maybe the plot motivator.
Mhm.
But understandably, it's adapted from the book, and from what I've read,
The book's different, seemingly.
there's quite a They've had to make a film. They've had to make more of a plot into it and whatnot. I just think that little lack of plot made it just one more thing that this guy was. It just added one more thing, and I thought for that thing to be the worst thing was a bit odd after everything that's come. But anyway, but I've got to say I really enjoyed it, and I don't know if that's because I really enjoyed James McAvoy's performance, because I think that really grounds the whole film, and it's so good. And I mean, even in that sort of final line, you kind of go, fair enough. And like I say, I just didn't know where it's going to go. Claire, what did you make of it? I mean, it's
Well, I mean, I'm a firm believer that if McAvoy's in something, you're in good hands. You got a really strong actor, and he can really portray his characters really well. But one of the things that I found really interesting about this film is how they dealt with conflict, because with every kind of story you need to have conflict. His conflict is constant throughout, but you get to the point when someone's nice to him, that's when you see him have conflict, and it's kind of like a reverse flip, negative of how conflict's normally used in storytelling, that the people are nice and then something bad happens. But with this, it's like things are constantly bad, and then suddenly something nice happens to him, and then you see this whole conflict in him. I don't know how to handle this, someone being nice to me. And I thought that, from my perspective, I thought that was a really interesting turn for the film, and interesting to see how the plot was then changed, or his character arc was then changed after that, and also seeing how his madness had started to affect other people, and the way that he had, like with his, not to give any spoilers, but when he did something to his friend, how he was then in shock of what was going on, or going into his own psychosis. It was quite, I like to see those things, and it was kind of like little, almost like little stories within the big story of this unfolding of this character and this slow revealing. So I really enjoyed it from that perspective. On the other perspective, I was lost. So I got lost in quite a few places, and you needed these little scene changes to get you back on board of where the story was going. Because I found some of it quite confusing, especially with the Scottish accent. As with Train Spotting, you need a couple of watches to actually get into the actual groove of the rhythm of their accent, and it's the same with this for me in some parts. But I thought it was brilliant. I'm going to have a second watch of it, just because there's a lot more to take in, I think.
Well, I think you're right, and you talk about it really is a film about kind of his slow descent into madness almost, and I didn't really see it as that at the time, but it very much is. This is, and you don't, and that's what kind of, I think that's why I liked it without realising it, because it doesn't start out as that.
No.
It starts out as he's this cop who's, you just think he's going to be this dirty cop who's going to do all this underhand stuff and get what he wants, at the end. And aren't we all supposed to feel bad about liking that and all that kind of stuff? But it wasn't, like you say. It slowly just keeps getting piled upon all these things that are happening to him. And like you said, he can't handle the good stuff, which is crazy. There are points where he could potentially be rescued and rescue himself, but he just doesn't know how to handle that.
And he actually says at one point to somebody else, I used to be really good at this job. And so it kind of gave you this sudden foundation that he never used to be like this, and he was a good guy. And it's just like, I wanted to know when did this all start? Because you kind of come in at the beginning of the end, and there's a whole story to see about what happened to this guy. And so as as someone to go and watch the film, you're in a really good place, because you don't have to put up with the hours and hours of this long time to get to this point. We're bang right at the prime of his psychosis kind of thing, which I thought was interesting.
One of the sort of up points of the film for me was just the mischievousness of it all, because it's a bit like, I suppose the closest thing to sort of compare it to would be Clockwork Orange, and the reason Clockwork Orange worked is because Alex clearly
revels in it. Yeah, for sure.
And
this is
there's
very
a real
similar
kind of enjoyment, but then it does do that really interesting thing. There's a scene on an aeroplane that is just purely racist, and it's horrible, and it does jolt you and thinking, am I? Sorry,
Have I
just
sided with the wrong
have I been
guy?
laughing
Yeah.
along with
Yeah.
him or at him? And it's got that real kind of, it does do that kind of
Yeah.
twisty thing. And then again, like you say, something as we get towards the end, it does that whole kind of like, oh, geez, this is really tragic. This is
It
really
is.
quite horrible. But I mean, I just think it's a bit of a shame. It's, you know, between the three of us, we went to 3 separate showings and not even 30 people
Yeah.
within 3
Yeah.
separate showings. So I hope, you know, I hope
More
they'll keep
people might
showing
get there.
films for grown-ups.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend Filth to anyone, but with the warning that it
Yeah, for sure.
it
You've
is
got to go and see it.
robust.
Robust
If
is
you
a good
don't
word.
like- and it's not something about Mary kind of
No.
dark humour. It's properly
It's dark, but they laugh at the real dark stuff. And
Mm.
you kind of start laughing with it, and then you feel guilty for laughing with it. So, yeah, I think you feel a bit conflicted yourself halfway through.
yeah, definitely.
So,
Anyway, that was Filth, and the next film is one that Claire's seen, R.I.P.D. It's about police. It's Ryan Reynolds. He looks a bit Men in Blacky. What's the crack with this, Claire?
I mean, I've read some reviews on this, and most people have said R.I.P.D. was DOA. It literally, and that completely sums
That's
it
it.
up, really.
Oh dear.
It's. I mean, it's got Jeff Bridges in. Obviously, he looks like he's just stepped out of the True Grit set, and they've Mary Louise Parker is in it. Kevin Bacon is in it, and he's actually incredible in this. He plays a complete slimeball, but he actually made the film work. The premise is that a cop passes away, and he gets taken up to judgment. But before he gets up to judgment, he gets whipped into the office where Mary Louise Parker is. And she plays a character called Proctor, and he said, right, you're now in the police department, and we basically need you to go back to Earth and stop the demons and people getting out of hell and put them back into where they belong. So then all you need to know after that is take Men in Black, take away the aliens, put in demons, and that's the
it.
film.
That's tough.
It literally looks as if it's got some of the same set. You know,
Right,
when they go
okay.
into the offices and stuff, it looks identical practically. And it's such a shame because this kind of thing, it could have been a really good idea. It's a really good concept. But it just looked as if it's just literally
lazy.
been blueprinted. It's a very lazy film. The acting in it is you know, Kevin Bacon acted his socks off, but you know, everyone else just looked like it was tedious. I know Jeff Bridges has said in some interviews, that film, it's a bit, and so
Very
you kind
morbid.
of think, well, if he feels that, you know, when you know, you should be proud of your work, but some people just go off and do films because they,
Working actor.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, I do recommend it for people who do enjoy Men in Black and that kind of film. I would recommend it if you do like kind of Ghostbusters, kind of that kind of stuff. But it is pretty much for the younger people. It is a 12A, and it's only an hour and a half. So I think if there's nothing else on a Sunday, then you just whack it on because it's not too bad. But then you do have films to compete with like Ghostbusters and Men in Black, and you just can't help but compare them. But Ryan Reynolds fans will enjoy it because I think he gets his top off a few times.
Okay.
But that's it. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Oh, that was R.I.P.D. Thanks for that, Claire. That'll probably be on DVD within a couple of
Relatively
months.
relatively
To be
soon.
Love
honest, so
film
enjoy that
tomorrow.
5 or
Christmas.
6 weeks.
I watched another film that's just come out on DVD called After Earth. It's directed by M. Night Shyamalan. I was really interested to watch this film. This is the film with Will and Jaden Smith.
Were you
where-
interested to watch it because you felt it had got a bad rap? Is that why?
I don't
Why?
know, because whenever I see such kind of critical
Vitriolic
panel of a film,
reaction.
you can think,
Yeah.
oh,
I'm going to take a look.
okay, that
Yeah.
could be interesting. And I really enjoyed The Happening, and no one else
That's
did,
true. Yep.
pretty much. I hated Lady Naughter, was just
Mhm.
terrible and awful. So I thought, okay, this could be quite interesting. Seeing Will Smith and Jaden Smith going around doing their father-son thing on various chat shows, it's all very nauseating. But still, Will Smith is a good screen presence.
Yeah.
He's pretty solid. And I don't know what people keep making fusses about child actors, and they're just as perfectly good or bad as anyone else. So I'm not bothered about this. Essentially, they crash land on a planet which turns out to be Earth, and the tail section of the spaceship is in one place. They're in the front section of the spaceship. They've got to get to the tail section of the spaceship to get a homing beacon to escape. Will Smith's leg is broken in several
Oh,
places.
Damn it.
He's a
Oh,
hard-ass
God.
military guy. His son doesn't quite live up to him.
Oh no.
But the boy's got to go and rescue the beacon.
Okay.
And it could have been brilliant. It could have. I was thinking maybe this will be like a sci-fi version of something like The Edge or The Grey.
Yep.
Something, you know, a bit existential, a bit kind of people against wilderness, because it's got this. The whole premise of it as well is that they have an alien on board, and they've been fighting this war with these aliens who don't see, they sense fear. That's how they kill people.
It's
And
like
the idea
dogs.
is Will Smith's commander was the first person to become a ghost. He was the first person to drop.
He
all
wasn't
fear.
afraid.
And of course, you get to the end of the film, and the first thing that comes up is story by Will Smith, and you go, okay, that's just explained it. I mean, it's only about 100 minutes, but it feels a lot longer. There's a moment where I'm going to spoil it because I just don't care. There's a moment where where the young boy gets saved because a condor drags him into a warm spot and lies on him and freezes to death in his place for the night. Almost, I don't know why, because at the start we're told every life form on this planet has evolved to
live
kill
there.
humans.
Oh, to kill humans. Okay.
You know, so I don't know.
So why would the condor
I don't
do
know
that?
what the problem is.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those films you just sit there and you just go, oh, okay, I've checked out entirely. And it could have been a really simple film. Even the very start, I kind of had an inkling something would be wrong. Because the very start, it's a black screen, then suddenly it flashes up, and there's obviously the spaceship's practically falling apart behind him. It's Will Smith's grabbing his son's face, going, "Stay still, brace yourself," and it flashes again. He gets sucked out, and you go, "Oh my God, what's happened?" And it goes 2 days earlier, and you go, "Oh, Battlefield Earth." I think Battle Los Angeles did the same thing where they had you're in a helicopter and there's aliens, and then it goes 2 months earlier, and you go, "Oh, it's half an hour I don't need in my life."
I just want to watch that bit.
It was
just happening.
I just really kind of. It's one of those films you watch, and it's annoying because it could be brilliant. It could be a really tense thriller. It could be a good father-son movie.
So who ruined it?
I think it's this story by Will Smith.
Yeah, he's not a screenwriter, is he? Let's face it.
No,
Never has been.
I mean,
Did he just come up with a concept?
I was telling
of it?
someone who said they were reading something. It was Scientology influenced or something, and I mean, I don't
know.
particularly
No idea.
care about
Yeah,
that.
no.
But you do get a sense they found this simple film and tried to make it important.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my son are going to do it. And I said to Russ, there's a special feature on the Blu-ray called Will and Jaden Smith, The Legacy of a Father and Son or something. And you just think it's just
Pomp and bollocks. Yeah.
But anyway, it's a real waste of thing. But talking about films at which you can just check out.
Yeah.
We watched No One Lives.
No One Lives.
No One Lives. One of the most aptly named films ever. Which is about a bunch of criminals who kidnap a lady, unbeknownst. What they do is they steal a car.
They steal a car. Yeah.
They steal a car.
This is the problem.
And there's a lady in the boot.
Oh my days.
And whose car was that? And what kind of weirdo is he?
Well, we know.
And we soon find out. What did we think of this? I mean, we were talking before about an 18-rated film. This is properly 18-rated.
Yeah, this is definitely 18 rated. I mean, like I said, I was relatively when you suggested let's do this for the podcast. I was like, oh okay, because I'd seen a trailer for it and thought I want to watch that film. That looks pretty exciting. And it's got Luke Evans in it, which is great. Relatively elevating the genre. He's a guy doing some good work. He's in the new Hobbit film. He's done some other bits and pieces, and he's perfectly fine. Immortals. He's a good actor. So you think surely he wouldn't slum it. why would he do that? And then working actor. Then it opens, and the first clue, the first breadcrumb is that it's made by WWE Films. You're like, oh, okay. Well, hey, maybe they've changed their minds. But I mean, look, as we have kind of alluded to, I mean, it is a big, dumb pile of cinema. There's nothing clever about it. The characters are paper thin. The plot is nuts, like really nuts, like just stupid, like so stupid. But at the same time, it's got some real standout moments. I mean, I've never seen someone wear someone before, and when I say wear, I mean WEAR, like wear someone as like a coat, which is quite an interesting concept. And after you've pulled that one out, there's very little kind of room for improvement. It was that was a real high point. It happens about kind of 30 minutes in. And so really, Friday night with a beer, which I think is when I watched it, it was perfectly enjoyable. any other time of the week without a beer, and you just throw it away and not watch it again. Because it's stupid. It's really stupid.
And it's it's gruesome in that kind of grand guignol sort of
Yeah,
fashion,
yeah,
rather
yeah.
than that sort of sadistic, quite lechy kind of saw and
Yeah, because there's no fear. There's no fear. There's zero tension. It has no emotion at all. You just literally sit there and watch this man make sure that the title becomes true by the end of the film. Which it kind of doesn't, actually. I've just thought about. But anyway, yeah, so that's my view on it. I mean, yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm going to say it was dumb, it was stupid, it was...
It's like the
horrible.
anti-cinema.
There was a bit involving a shower curtain where I kind of thought, oh no, where's this going? And even that bit, you just went, fair enough. It was quite a... I'd say it was a nasty, sort of less than 90 minutes bit of fun.
Yeah.
I can tell you didn't see all of it.
No, I didn't. I didn't switch it off because I didn't like it. I just unfortunately I just couldn't watch the rest. But I did get to the point where he was wearing the
Wearing the man,
and I got to the point where it was quite good because the camera was coming in slowly into the body, and I just thought, and I did that thing where I hid my eyes a little bit. You know when you're a kid and you just
moment of I actually said to myself, he's wearing him.
I saw something moving. That's why I thought it
no
was.
one else in the room.
Yeah.
I just went,
This is brilliant. Anyway, but yeah, so like I say, watching it with some friends would be a laugh. You'd have a good time. That's it, really.
Yeah, pretty much. That's all we could say about No One Lives, apart from someone does.
Someone does.
Oh.
Which is I've just only just
good
realised that.
Okay, so the last film on our list tonight is Compliance. Compliance is quite a different film to all the other films we've watched tonight. It's not a film you get your mates around to watch with a beer in any sense. It's based on a true and quite shocking story of an individual who would phone up shops and fast food restaurants and pretend to be an authority figure, usually a policeman, and they would convince the manager to perform essentially strip search people. And of course it doesn't end there. And this film is very much it plays out one of the crimes is the best way to describe the
Probably
plot
such.
It essentially plays out one of the crimes. I mean, I had a real hard time watching this film. I mean, the story is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the problem. Is I know it says at the start this is a true story. Nothing has been exaggerated, and you're sat there watching it, going, "This must have been exaggerated."
So these people are dumb.
Because it is mad. And after, like I say, you go back and you do a bit of research, and no, this did happen. Which is insane. I mean, I think it would have worked better as a documentary in the style of The Imposter.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought.
My problem with it was I'm not enjoying this. It's not an entertainment, and because it's based on something real, there's just something not right about it. Because it's not exciting. It's not. There was nothing. It was really weird. It just didn't engage me. Like it didn't grab my attention. I remember I was checking my phone. I was just kind of seeing what was going on, and I just kind of sat there letting it be on and kind of letting it happen. And the true story is more interesting than the film. It's got more power. And so I think had they done a documentary about it, it would have been riveting with these people who were involved telling you why they did it and their feelings at the time. Because it's as crazy as it is. So basically someone ends up getting very seriously sexually assaulted because of power shifts and all the kind of stuff that goes on. And to hear the real people talk about that would be thrilling, would be really interesting. And yet instead you just kind of, you just get this film which is trying to be a bit Fargo-y in terms of the characters it's put into it. And it's just, I don't know, like I say, it was fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I just didn't find it particularly engaging. It was very cold. And obviously it is a very serious subject in that sense. But I don't know. And like you said, you just sat there every minute going, what? What? I
did a couple of reservations about it. First of all, I did get to a point where I thought, I'm just watching a sexual assault.
Yeah.
There's no... it's not contextualizing anything. I'm just watching sexual assault, and I think you've got to give credit to the director that it's not shot in a lechy way at all.
It's not graphic in any way.
I
I think it's very honest.
It's not
kind of
shot in
thing.
a. It doesn't cut. It doesn't do that thing where, it doesn't sort of fetishize what's going on. It doesn't. It's not cut in such a way that, body's accentuated or anything. But I still felt I'm just watching a sexual assault. And my other issue with it was, it would appear to be slovenly overweight people harassing a very thin, beautiful person.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there is no way those people look like that in real life.
yeah.
But when presented on film, there's something.
But choices have been made.
Yeah.
In
people
casting
have been
for
cast,
it. Yeah.
Presumably because they're in some way menacing.
Yeah.
Or stupid looking or gullible looking, and I think I don't know. I think there's an odd sort of body politics not in the body politic way, but you know what I mean. There's an odd sort of body politics going on within that film. That was a bit. I don't know. The whole exercise left me very uncomfortable, to the point where I actually ended up fast forwarding a chunk of the end just to see what happened in the end.
Yeah.
Because I just kind of thought, I'm just watching a sexual assault, and I'm just watching. I don't know. Something about the casting made me feel very uncomfortable about it.
Well, there was one scene for me which I didn't feel like it fit in everything, and I don't want to obviously get too yucky on this, but it was one scene where he was looking at a private region of her body because the guy was saying, and then someone walked in and she moved as if they were doing something wrong. And I know it was only for a couple of seconds, but that for me just totally thought, why are they even doing this film? It didn't ring true. I think you're very right that it should have been a documentary, because for me there was too many choices in it that weren't real. And it was trying to be honest, and the shots were very honest, and it wasn't too lechy or anything, but there was a couple of shots which I thought this just seems to be a bit too weird and didn't really fit in with the whole context of everything else. And so for me that kind of ruined it. Obviously, I would recommend people to watch it because I think it is quite an interesting piece, but I think they could have made a few better choices.
I can't imagine how uncomfortable it was to watch in the cinema. I can imagine watching that in a full cinema.
Yeah.
Taking a date to watch it.
It's date night compliance. Yes, sounds pretty good.
Just a very
odd.
I think one of the very unsettling, and I
Reminds me of a Gus Van Sant
film. The
film.
argument, but it's supposed to be okay. That's That's fair enough.
And like you
but
say,
at the end of the day,
and
if I end up essentially skipping a part of the film because I just want to find out what happened in the end because I'm just watching a sex guy, all I've got to think is, well, what is the point?
Yeah, I mean, because it's the people in it are in prison. It's very serious stuff, but I mean, it's so odd because for all of its faults, in terms of the film wise, the actual story's compelling.
Oh, it's riveting. That's why I didn't just turn it off.
But because you can put yourself in that position.
Yeah.
And someone phones up and he says he's a policeman. He can't come over because he's dealing with something else at the moment. But can you detain someone? And it gets to that point, and like I say, it does stretch itself to kind of craziness. But it did happen, and so there is that level of what would you do, and you can understand how this is happening, but at the same time you're tearing your hair out that it's happening, and all the bad choices that were made along the way. So yeah, I mean, I
think the comparison with The Imposter is the key one, because if you were to make as good as
Exactly.
I think a drama of The Imposter would be, and as much fun as that would be, you get to a point where actor would be stood next to the photo and you go, well, he looks nothing like him.
Yeah.
But whereas in The Imposter, you had the real guy.
And
sat
that's
there
what
going,
happened.
I look nothing like him.
Like
I don't know
him.
why they fell for it.
Yeah.
And that's part of
real life is stranger than fiction.
That's part of the draw of it.
Yeah.
But
So I don't know whether.
I mean, having said what I've said, I don't think it's a maliciously bad film.
No.
I just think it's a miscalculated film.
It's a
been
really
odd
interesting one. I'm saying it was,
Yeah.
and it was, it is. And like I say, listen, we're obviously watching loads of horror stuff at the moment, which is mad. Oh,
Oh,
We're
and
out
there's
of
the buzzer.
time.
that's the buzzer.
Anyway, thank you very much for listening to another edition of Sarnia Cinema. If you've got any views on the films we've been chatting about, especially like compliance and what's the first film we talked about? Filth as well, which is playing at the moment.
R.I.P.D.
Well, yeah, R.I.P.D. Next month when it's on DVD. Please let us know on the Facebook page. Please share this, like it on YouTube. Please join in on Sarnia Cinema. We're currently doing our 31 Days of Horror, in which we're discussing essential horror films. Next time we meet will be in a couple of weeks' time. We will be talking about, I'm quite excited, Captain Phillips
Yep.
will have opened, Gravity will have opened,
Oh, massive films.
Yeah.
and
Massive
we're just going to
films.
catch Ender's Game.
Yeah,
Yep.
Brilliant.
massive.
And Sunshine on Leaf is on as well, if anyone can be bothered. Goodbye.